What's up guys, Dan here and welcome back to another episode of Hatch's Recreational Engineering. And on this episode we're going to cover the crate motor that we installed in my 69 Nova, the problems we had with it, how they were handled, and where we're at now with the car. So let's get into it. So the best place to start this story is at the beginning. Back in 2020 I found this beat up, clapped out 6-cylinder Power Glide Nova in an Auto Trader ad in California. And I bought this thing sight unseen and had it shipped to New Jersey. From the moment this car arrived, I knew that I wanted to compete in a drag and drive with it. So slowly over the next few years, we began to make chassis, brake, and suspension modifications to this thing, knowing that we wanted to do a drag and drive with it. So last winter when Hot Rod announced that for 2025 Hot Rod Drag Week would return to the East Coast for the first time since 2019, we knew that that was our chance. So we had to take this grandma grocery getter and turn it into a full-fledged race car, and we had to do it quick. So it was time to come up with a plan. Now when it comes to crate motors, there's no way you haven't heard of Blueprint Engines in Nebraska.
What, do you live under a rock?
They're extremely well known for making high-performance crate motors that run on pump gas and come with a 30-month, 50,000-mile warranty.
No way.
So as a blue-collar guy on a budget, Blueprint felt like a no-brainer to us. We needed a complete engine package, we needed it fast, we needed it to make decent power, and unlike a lot of local engine builders, no one could compete with the warranty that Blueprint offered on their engine. And most importantly, they took a credit card.
I'm broke as shit.
So by the end of January, we had our Blueprint Engines 427. But we still had a ton of work to do in the car. We still had to get the 6-cylinder and the Power Glide out of it. The subframe came out of the car. We brought the car to Connecticut to have the roll cage done. So we didn't actually get the Blueprint engine in the car and fired up until April 25th. This is also when the first warranty claim was filed. So at a cold start, the engine would make 60 pounds of oil pressure. Once warmed up and neutral, it would make about 25 to 30 pounds of oil pressure. But when in gear and warm, at about 195 degrees, this thing would make between 10 to 12 psi of oil pressure at 800 RPM. So we submitted a warranty claim online the first day we fired this thing up. So within a day or two of filing the online claim, Blueprint reached out to me and they wanted to know if the oil pressure increased with engine RPM, which it did. Driving it around on the street, it made between like 40 to 60 pounds of oil pressure depending on the engine RPM. So they told me that their general rule of thumb is 10 PSI per 1000 RPM, which technically it was making. So they told me to send it.
You guys silly? I'm still gonna send it.
Now, almost immediately after talking to them, the first round of braking oil that was in the car, I dumped it to see what it looked like. It had some glitter in it, but nothing alarming for a fresh engine build. So we put another round of fresh braking oil in it, and we drove the car the 500-mile braking period that Blueprint recommends. Once completing the braking period, we dropped that round of braking oil, took a look at it. Again, glittery, but nothing major, super alarming for that new of an engine. So we put conventional oil in it and continued to drive the car. But the oil pressure was still low like that. Still meeting the 10 PSI per 1000 RPM requirement that they advised, but low. So August 27th, just about 2 weeks before heading to drag week, I brought the car in to do some service on it. We were gonna throw spark plugs in it, do an oil change, and just give it a good solid once over before going to drag week. When I dropped the oil out of this thing, we found metal, and like a lot of metal. And at this point, we've done 3 oil changes on this car, so we definitely shouldn't be finding metal by this point. So the second warranty claim was filed at this point.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Again, within a day or two, Blueprint reached out to me and they advised me to pull the motor out of the car and drop the oil pan. So the same day they advised me to do that, that night we pulled the motor out of the car, dropped the oil pan, and sure enough, we had metal in it. Sent them photos, videos, the whole 9. And they asked me if I wanted to start pulling main caps off of it and see what the bearings looked like. But honestly, with the warranty, I didn't feel comfortable taking apart the motor and then potentially reassembling it and hoping that they would continue to honor the warranty.
Oh, hell no!
So we decided to send the motor back to Blueprint so that they could continue to go through it and evaluate what's the issue with it. Now keep in mind, we were only like 2 weeks before having to have this car at drag week. So now the motor is laying in my garage next to the car that's supposed to be racing in just 2 weeks. So we had to make a knee-jerk reaction. We wound up buying a used 355 from a friend of a friend of a friend just to get us to the event. Now that 355 was a nice little unit. I still have that motor and it worked great. It was actually a rowdy little 355. Really nice piece and we had no problems with it. But keep in mind the $11,000 motor that I bought specifically to have this car at drag week wasn't gonna make drag week. On September 22nd, we shipped the motor back to Nebraska. Now, Blueprint paid for the shipping. They sent a truck. All I had to do was palletize the motor and it got picked up. Motor physically left me on September 22nd and arrived back to them on September 29th. Now, I didn't hear anything from Blueprint from September 29th all the way till October 28th when they called me to let me know that they had gone through the motor and identified that the rod bearing clearances were wrong and that thing was in fact killing itself.
You done messed up, Aaron!
They advised me that they were going to handle the situation, they were going to do a full rebuild on my motor, go through everything, re-dyno it and send it back, and then it would be a few more weeks before I got it back. So on November 18th, Blueprint followed up with me and let me know that the motor was done and that it was shipping back out. And I actually received the 427 back to me on November 25th. Now my regular viewers haven't even seen yet, but the 427 is actually back in the car. On New Year's Day, I worked up the nerve to drag it down here into the new shop, and Mike, my dad, and I spent New Year's Day ramrodding this thing back into the car. The 69 is down here. All the parts for the 69. Well, it's been a minute since you even saw the 69. Trying to kind of figure out where I left off here, because it's been a minute. Took the trans out first. The motor was still in the car. Then I pulled the motor out a month later, and it's just stuff going on. I like to build everything out here and then install it as single piece. So I already know a radiator's gonna have to come out. I did get some stuff. So this is the torque converter that's back. It's custom built, 3000 stall. These guys built this for me knowing that we were gonna do drag and drive stuff with this car. And this converter worked great until literally the last day of drag week. It was having issues stalling. I couldn't get it to leave hard. Playing around with it later on, I found out that if I stayed on the stall long enough, like a light switch, all of a sudden it would come back on. It was pretty wild. I had Rich Wilk, my trans guy, come and check it out, and he was like, let's pull that converter out and have that thing checked out. So the guys had no problem cutting this thing open for me and going through it. They said they didn't find anything major, but they did put a new sprag in it just to be safe. So hopefully that fixed the issue. Darius over at T4, this is the carburetor that came with the Blueprint motor, but if you remember, it had a choke horn and all sorts of stuff on it. And Darius went all through this thing. You can check out the video on that. This thing is super fresh, but it's never been on the 427, you know, since being refreshed. We put that thing right back on that 355. 355 got all of the accessories from the Blueprint motor so that we could compete in drag week. And I don't want to pull that stuff back off the 355. I'm going to have to pull some of the stuff like the alternator and starter because I just don't have the funds right now to do a whole nother round of stuff. But I didn't want to pull gasket stuff off, so I got a new water pump for this thing. Got a new thermostat housing. I run the thermostat for the fans in the thermostat housing, so we'll run it that way. 180-degree thermostat, door converter bolts. I got to change the shims. They were different than what the 355 had. Exhaust gaskets, spark plugs. I run a small spacer, carb spacer, because I run a flat hood on this thing, so space is tight. I'm gonna throw the Blueprint distributor back in this thing just to get it fired up and broken in, but I do want to put an MSD Pro billet in this and lock out the ignition timing. Knowing that I wanted to do this, I already installed a start retard. You can't even see it in there. Anyway, it's tucked up way in here somewhere. I'm gonna need all sorts of crap off that other motor. This looks good though. Big boy. Hopefully we don't have any problems with it. Look who showed up. Maintenance Mike. And Stashu. Oh. And Madison. With Heelys. Oh no, now we're in trouble. Anyway, we robbed a bunch of front accessory stuff. This is all back together, kind of, sort of. Building motors. Flex plates on here. Transmission needs to get married. So that's where we're at. You gonna start? Just like his face. Pretty thick, straight. All right, so the motor is in. The 427 is back at home in the 69. We got the 69 shoved over, and on the lift, other than getting the motor in the car yesterday, we pretty much shut it down. But my dad had a good point. The radiator had about 2 inches covered up by part of the rad support. So there's like a bump out on the rad support here, and I wound up cutting that off. So now when the radiator sits in here, the full radiator receives actual cooling. All the fins now aren't blocked by anything. But what I do want to do is when my trans cooler, this is one of the big B&M fin trans coolers, when that's up, you can see there's a few inches blocked by the rad support. So what I went ahead and did was I marked out a couple holes here. I'm gonna hole saw 3 big 2.25 inch, I think, holes in the rad support so that I can get as much airflow to that trans cooler as I possibly can without like totally carving up this 1969 stock rad support. I'm gonna set you up, drill a couple holes, and then we're just gonna keep chipping away at this thing because still gotta get headers in it, gaskets, just get as much done as we possibly can. Now you can see what I'm talking about. 1, 2, 3. So now when the trans cooler, which I can't do one-handed, but when this thing is where it's got to be, we'll get as much airflow through it as we hopefully can. Not that I think we had a problem with any of this stuff, but just want it to be the best it can be. All right, everything is hooked back up. Drive shaft's back in it, connected, U-joints, exhaust is all hooked back up. Transmission linkage is all hooked back up. Oil filters on here. Oil's in it. Headers are all back on. Transmission cooler lines are back on here. Yeah, we're looking good. I think we're ready to drop this thing down, put some transmission fluid in it. I want to prime it real quick, like an oil pump priming tool. Prime the motor real quick, and then we should be ready to fire this thing up. Yeehaw. Okay, ready? You got fuel pressure at the carburetor. Okay. All right, she's all yours. All right, ready? Go ahead. Got ourselves a runner. It's definitely happy. It's at 55 pounds of oil pressure and the temp is 170. So since getting the 427 back, this thing seems to be running cherry now. On a cold start, this thing makes about 80 pounds of oil pressure. Once it's good and warmed up, it's like 40 PSI in neutral, and in drive, it drops down to about 30, 35. So I think this thing is super, super happy now, and I don't suspect we're gonna have the issues that we had with it last time, but we haven't really driven it yet. It's the middle of the winter here, and we haven't really had it out of the garage. I think we're in the clear here. Now I bet you're wondering, damn, so was the Blueprint engine worth it? Now, thinking back on it, we did so many engine swaps on this car last year. We had the 6-cylinder out of this car, the 427 in, the 427 out, the 355 in, the 355 out, and then the 427 back in. Just in a 1-year period, we had 6 swaps on this thing. Just ridiculous. But I can do an engine swap on this car so fast now. I have no ties. I'm not sponsored by Blueprint in any way, shape, or form. But honestly, their customer service was second to none. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they stood by their product. Does it suck that I had to do that extra work and labor and not make it the drag week with the motor? Of course it sucks. But would I have been in the same situation if I had bought the motor from someone else? I don't know. So now that the Blueprint engine is back in the car, running good, I cannot wait to see what this thing's going to be capable of 2026. Hopefully I can get this thing to run a 1099 9 with a 9. It would be super nice. So that's my experience with my Blueprint 427, the issues it had, how they got resolved, the time frame it got resolved, and where we're at today. So Drop something down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you've had problems with a crate motor. And that's going to do it for this episode. We'll see you next time.